All right, good morning. Thank you. Last day. We're up early in the morning. Good job. Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Danny McGinnis. I look after product management here for Compute business unit at Cisco. So think all things UCS, Intersight, a lot of our solutions work with AI Pod, Secure AI Factory. A lot of that comes out of our business unit. All right, so as an industry, I guess we've been looking at AI for quite some time now. If you think about, probably just the last 4 years of Amsterdam as a conference like Cisco Live or any other tech conference, we've been in this conversation around Gen AI. We've been talking about running large language models in our data centers, chatbots, and all the good stuff that probably uses up a big portion of our data center. I think, though, what's transitioned or changed more rapidly just in the last 12 months has been this conversation around what I'll call edge AI or business AI, and then transforming that as kind of a hybrid role with agentic. And so I think if you're in this space and you're thinking about the future of your business and trying to plan for what's ahead, it's really important to understand kind of the whys, what's changing, and how we're going to provide the right infrastructure and the connectivity to support these types of modern workloads. And so that's what we're going to talk a little bit about today. Before I start, I'm going to roll a quick video so you can hear from a couple of our customers, and I'll be right back up.
The importance of the edge is now coming to bear in a way that maybe it hasn't been thought of for many, many years. As we make that move to edge, what we're now starting to see, and it really is driven by a change in AI requirements, is a move back towards on-prem.
A large part of our strategy is to ensure that we are AI ready. We can process and operate AI-related applications within the factory itself, right at the edge on premise. All of that processing has to be real time.
When we are serving patients, we really go to the patient to provide the care as close to the patient as we can. As a result, we need to be able to deploy our edge to a wide variety of locations that we never had to before. It needs to be reliable, needs to be securable, scalable, and it also needs to be quickly deployable by maybe somebody who's not the most technical.
The modularity and the flexibility that the platform will bring along would be a key distinguishing factor for us, simply because we are expected to scale enormously as the workloads grow and the processing power needs grow.
We need to be able to scale in different places at different speeds while providing the very same experience and the very same level and quality of care.
We truly want to get to a point where we are, not just predictive, but really preemptive in nature.
As we rethink what the edge looks like, the importance of the network grows infinitely.
Our factory simply can't go down. We are ensuring that our systems are built to last, built to scale, to be resilient, and be intelligent.
We don't know what the future is going to bring. We've already seen massive amounts of technology change. Being able to factor that in to a future-proof edge platform is critical.
All right, so some really good customer testimonials and use cases, and I think it sets the stage for the conversation we're about to have today. So let's talk a little bit about kind of what we're seeing and some of the whys, so we get into, we'll talk a little bit about what we're building, but it's always important, I think, to unpack the whys a bit. So the first off, I think, hopefully we all recognize now that there is an absolute surge of AI workloads coming our way. But what that also means is that the infrastructure is also changing very rapidly, and there is no one-size-fits-all model in this world. So important to be cognizant of that. The second is, and especially as we start talking about fleet-wide operations, the operating model is really, really important and top of mind. Think about it. As you as IT professionals, IT leaders, you've probably been for the last decade or so centralizing workloads into the cloud or reducing the number of data centers you have. And now we're saying the whole world is flipping and it's going the other direction and we're going to be back to a distributed model. And that is absolutely what's happening. We'll talk about some of the whys here in a second. And then lastly, that ultimately means more data is at the edge, and that means we need more intelligence at the edge. If you think about sensors and cameras and our human voices, the amount of data that generates needs to be processed as close to the source as possible. You hear a lot of talk about in AI about this concept of data gravity, and that's typically what I mean, right? You're trying to process, you're trying to analyze as close to the source of the data as we possibly can. All right, so we believe that this kind of, these sort of changes and this transformation demands a new approach, and so that's why we've set out to kind of reinvent how we look at this and fundamentally change the way you're able to operate in this type of world. So if you think about just ultimately what's the goal then, like what is part of my job or my team's role, it's really to think about how can we deliver you a simplified way to compute. And with that, we kind of look at it in three different pillars. The first I would say is around infrastructure, making sure that we have obviously the most high-performing, highly scalable infrastructure that we can provide you, but also one that grows with your needs. I can guarantee you that whatever you think you know today or you think you need today will be drastically different just 12 months from now or 24 months from now. The second is an operating model that doesn't shift. At the end of the day, and one of the biggest problems that I see in the world of AI is how can we actually support these environments at scale because they're changing so quickly. And now that they're being more distributed, that sets up an entirely new set of challenges we're facing. All right, so let me just talk to you really quick about our portfolio in general. So on our Blade infrastructure, this is probably what you know us for if you're familiar with Cisco Compute and UCS. This is an area that we're continuing to double down in and invest in, even while a lot of our competitors divest. Our fundamental thought process here is that in a time where power and space and cooling are more precious than they've ever been, these architectures allow for you to actually take advantage of all of those and save in the areas where you're constrained. Really also very proud for the last couple of years we've been working really hard to double down in our rack portfolio. And so on both of these, full latest and greatest AMD and Intel lineup across both sets of platforms, pretty much every form factor you can imagine. This isn't even the whole portfolio, it's just kind of a snapshot of what we're doing. We've also invested heavily in the largest, most dense AI platforms that you can imagine. So your SXM-based HGX architectures from NVIDIA and equivalents from AMD. And then also our lightest and smallest, newly announced about 3 months ago, unified edge platform that I'm about to introduce. A big part of what we do too, and you probably saw it on the last slide, I didn't talk to it, but is about our stack. We understand that we are just one cog in the wheel or one part, one player in a very large ecosystem. And so a big part of what we also do is try to bring you a more tightly integrated full stack solution where we partner with a lot of the logos and beyond that you see here so that you get a more comprehensive, tested, validated set of features and solutions so you can spend more time focusing on the applications in your environment. One example of this that you probably, I hope that you've heard of, if you've been at Cisco Live for 3 days, you've probably heard a little bit about this concept of a secure AI factory. Just spend a second or two here. So as we kind of went on this AI journey for the last couple of years, one of the things we quickly realized was that a lot of customers, unlike where you were in a VMware environment or even a containerized environment, there's a lot of newness here. There's a lot of not really sure what I should be doing. Cisco, can you help give us some guidance? So we came out with this concept of an AI pod, which really built this full stack from the storage layer to the compute layer to the networking layer, the Kubernetes layer, and the software stack that sits on top with companies like NVIDIA with their enterprise software. So that's great. We gave you a way to actually run the workload in your environment. But in order to take an AI application from proof of concept or development into production, we still have to meet all the security standards that our company puts on us. We have to make sure we can operate it and put the SLAs in the environment that you're used to or that your businesses are accustomed to. And so a big part of the factory isn't just how we build the stack for the workload, but it's also how we incorporate it into the rest of our workflows, into our security posture, and into our operating model. And so if you haven't seen that yet, it's a great place to get started, especially if you're in those early days of AI. Okay, let's jump into Edge now. So I started to talk a little bit about this kind of transformation, data at the edge, and I think if you just take a step back and you think about your personal lives, right? Every single industry or vertical that we experience in our daily lives, whether that be in retail, whether it be in manufacturing, whether it be in healthcare, it's all transforming. Right? So why is it transforming? One example, I guess, if you think about it, we've been installing cameras and sensors and taking pictures of ourselves and videos of ourselves as we walk around events like this, as we walk into retail stores, but we've never really had the power, the compute power, or the applications to do a lot of useful things with it. So think about all that wasted intelligence. It gets backhauled to a data center. Some of those camera feeds get stored. A lot of it gets thrown away or never processed or never looked at. But now we live in a world where we can change pretty much everything we do because the data has so much intelligence available to it. And we have applications and application providers. If you walk around this floor, I mean, there's so many phenomenal demos sitting around. There's literally a hologram at the Intel booth of Howie Mandel. I might not even be here next year. I may be a hologram next year. I mean, that's how quickly this is moving. And so a lot of that is because what we're seeing in terms of our new software vendors being able to unlock and unleash these capabilities. Okay, so with that, it kind of introduces a bit of a problem, right? So a little bit of a stat. 2021, 90% of all data processed in the data center or in the cloud, some centralized location, 10% at the edge. Look at where we're going in 2027. It's almost completely inverted. 75% on the edge, 25% in the data center. The data center's not getting smaller, by the way. Obviously, they're growing at a very rapid pace as well. But that just goes to show you how much more compute is necessary at the edge to provide the type of experience that we're alluding to or talking about. All right, now for those of you that are actually stuck deploying this, right? So now let's assume your line of business, the company you work for has said, hey, we need more compute at the edge because we're changing those experiences. You're left holding the bag, you go figure this out. This is kind of what an edge location looks like. This is a virtualized environment of what we see in a lot of our customer locations, a bunch of servers, some switches, some routers, and a whole bunch of network cables coming out of the front of that. Really challenging to maintain, really challenging to secure, really challenging to provide the same level of service at the cost that you're expected to do it at when it starts to distribute to all of these remote locations. And so we set out to change that. Knowing that this was coming, we looked at it and said, okay, we're going to need a new way to do edge. And so we kind of reinvented ourselves here. Tried to take the best of everything we do in terms of compute, in terms of storage, in terms of networking, and package that all up and put it into the same box. Give you kind of a sneak peek into it. Not going to get into all the technical details here, but we built an 18-inch deep, 19-inch wide box, modular in design, so that you can start small, but be able to accommodate your needs as they start to grow. Packed a whole bunch of compute, a whole bunch of networking, a whole bunch of storage capacity into the box. And also we're really thoughtful around making this box work in an environment like a coffee shop or a manufacturing floor. Did a lot with the acoustics and the way we tuned the fans so that they're optimized for the human ear. Did air filtration on the front for HIPAA filtering, has NEBS compliance associated with it. So really thought about a way of, once this box is in place, how can we make it super easy for you to service? One of the biggest things that you have when you service these environments is that truck roll associated with it. Sometimes the truck roll can be more expensive than the server itself. And so trying to take that really expensive technician having to go out to a location rather than maybe the general manager at the store being able to service this over time was our goal. We set it up so you can mount it in a 2-post rack, a 4-post rack. We can mount it on a wall. We can put it as a tower on the floor. So we give you a lot of flexibility in the way that you'll deploy this inside of your locations. Okay, so that's kind of the physical idea, gave you a little taste there. We also knew that we had to change the way you operated at scale, right? So we've been really good at managing thousands of devices in small numbers of locations. But when you think about the edge, you're trying to manage a small number of devices in thousands of locations, or hundreds of locations. And so from day 0 all the way through day N, we've been working for 2 years to redesign what that entire operating model looks like. I'm going to give you a little bit of a sneak peek here in a demo. So first off, every one of the boxes that you just saw gets an NFC reader embedded in it from day 1. So now, anyone that you choose to have a very specific role-based access can use their smartphone, claim the device, make sure that it's connected back to centralized management tools. We call that Intersight. That's our management platform. And at that point, your work on the edge is now done. There's no more work that has to be done on site. From there, once that box has been registered, we've actually in advance already told and given this profile that said, hey, when San Diego comes up, we want to deploy our small store blueprint. So you can see that that's already in the process of being deployed with no human intervention whatsoever. That was done when it was ordered. This point, though, you'll notice that the box is not in conformance. That's because we're still waiting for this blueprint of this architecture to deploy. As that is starting to happen, let's go take a look at what the configuration looks like. This instance for that small store included a Red Hat server, it included a Windows server, and included a set of settings that we expected to be onto the box, firmware settings, IP address settings, DNS settings, things of that nature. And now, after we looked at that, you come back and we can see in a very easy to view map that the box has reached conformance. This means we now know it's following the golden standard that we've set up for that store type. All right, let's fast forward. We're in the market for 6 months. There's a security vulnerability on the firmware that we're running on the box. Well, guess what? Now at scale, I can change what that blueprint looks like. Very simply, say I want to go from 6.10a to 6.11. Set that as my new blueprint standard. Decide that I want to batch change this across my entire fleet. In this case, we used America. And now on a follow the sun model, that will actually roll out to all of those devices in the change window that we've pre-specified associated with that platform. And so now all the boxes during whatever your change window is all start to upgrade, and you get a really nice dashboard to show you how to do that. So anyway, this is just a small example of what I mean when we're talking about day 0, making it super easy for you to show up, not having to send yourself or your most expensive resources out to the site to go configure the box, but then be able to manage this fleet at scale throughout the entire lifeline or life expectancy of your organization. Okay, can't forget about security and observability. I brought that up in the beginning, how important that is. So the good thing is at Cisco, we do a lot more than just build hardware. We have a lot of security tools. We have a lot of observability tools. We've thought about that from the very beginning, embedding tools like Splunk and Thousand Eyes to help you observe and bring that into your operational model. And from a security perspective, we tried to think about security at every single layer. One of the things you'll hear me and a lot of folks at Cisco talk about right now is how important security is at every single layer of the model, and it cannot be an afterthought. It has to be embedded from the ground up. So in this case, we have physical security built into the box. I gave you an example of how if a config drift were to occur where one of your sites fell out of conformance, we give you really easy to visualize notifications about that. And then we also take and bring our security tools through our SD-WAN and our SASE capabilities, as well as our segmentation that you get from our routing capabilities, as well as our AI model security with AI defense, all into a single platform, so that you can feel comfortable about having a trusted model, especially as you think about distributing this at scale. You also see us working with a large ecosystem of partners. A lot of our ISV partners are here on the floor or are being demoed in booths. This is just a small example of some of those partners and companies that I mentioned that are working really hard to unleash and unlock some of that data. And so, keep your eye on some of these. I think there's some really good demos around to go check out. All right, so with that, better than hearing it from me, I'd like to invite Antonio Murta to stage. This is the CEO of AI for CMR. They are doing some phenomenal work. I'm going to let Antonio introduce himself. Thank you, sir, for being here with us.
It's a pleasure.
Want to have a seat?
Okay.
Why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about your company and the vision.
Good morning to you all. My company basically does cardiac magnetic resonance. I will tell you in 1 minute what cardiac magnetic resonance is about. When you have a kinetics problem with your heart, normally you have to start with an echocardiography, which is very easy to do. But if you need rigor, you need to enter an MRI machine for 1 hour, be still for 1 hour, and collect 500 images, which are very complex, to be analyzed by an expert. What I do is to support the expert to guarantee that he does that swiftly and safely. There are very few experts that are able to analyze CMR images or exams in the world, thousands, literally. It takes 10 years to be an expert. And basically, the constraint in the world right now is not anymore MRI machines. We have plenty of them. They are accessible. It's the experts, because they're not as many as we would like them to be. And so I'm doubling to quintupling productivity to guarantee that the very same experts can handle safely much more cases. That's my job.
That's great. All right, so obviously I'm up here talking about the edge. You need the edge. You need that compute power and that processing edge. Talk a little bit about why edge compute, edge processing is so important to the work you're doing.
So basically, I'll mention 2 examples from customers or if you want, acquaintances that I'm running right now. One is in the United States, Johns Hopkins, one of the most important medical schools in the world, actually the home of MESA study. MESA study is the largest cardiology study in the world. It has been running for decades. So I was challenged to serve the very top experts of Johns Hopkins jointly with you. And basically, the litigation, legal aspects of data privacy are so dire in the United States. Many of you know that much better than I do, that actually the researchers said to me, Antonio, we would love to do this here, not in the cloud, because it's too difficult to guarantee that it gets done. We will delay the research for at least 6 months. And that's why we reached you, because you thought about all of this properly. We understand fully that the security elements and, shall we say, the whole organization elements around the edge are more dire than the concentration on the cloud. That's a very important example that we're doing together. I will quote another one, which is in a very radical set of circumstances. This is India, the largest population country in the world. Very low latency, very high latency in many hospitals. Actually very difficult to use cloud architecture, not because the internet doesn't work, but because it's too expensive and they can't afford it, simply put. So actually here the edge is not an option. If you want to do safe AI, medical AI on the ground, you don't have an option. You either have an edge architecture or you can't, simply put. So this is the largest oncology chain in India, and we are actually deploying the edge to facilitate that the experts can handle many, many patients. And here the demands for patients are dire because the imbalance between experts and patients is gigantic. It's actually frightening. Not comparable to the situation of the United States in any way, shape, or form, okay? So very 2 different examples that illustrate.
So we've got latency. These are some big files we're talking about transfer. We got latency, we have data privacy, we have protection, we have security, sovereignty, regulatory, a lot of...
So I'll illustrate with another example, which is not related strictly to what I'm doing, but I'm aware of it because obviously I'm very much into health applications. So you know that real-world evidence, clinical data, is very relevant for medical device companies and for pharma companies. New drugs, new devices, new medical devices cannot get approved without clinical evidence that supports that they're safe. So in the old days, we would be able to, between commas, apply models that would allow us to buy and sell data respecting privacy rules. But in many jurisdictions like Europe for now, for example, it's not legal anymore to sell data. You can only sell access to data. And that's totally different. The moment you do that, data is not allowed to get out of the hospitals. So we are now moving to a world in which clinical trial data, actually fundamental for drug development and fundamental for medical device approval, cannot move away from hospitals. This is a trend. The moment this gets implemented across large jurisdictions like continental Europe, actually the edge becomes the norm, not the exception.
Yeah, that's absolutely what we're seeing and why we invest in the box. So we're at Cisco. You like the platform. You've chosen the platform as part of your go-to-model. Talk a little bit about why what we've done is differentiated from what you've seen in the market.
I'll tell you with an example, and I think that this example will illustrate why is this important. Look, the exam that basically I've been working for the last 80 years is a very complex exam. It's an exam that takes 10 years for a doctor to be an expert. 10 years. You need to become a doctor. Then you need to do your specialty of cardiology, and then you need to become an MRI, a cardiac MRI expert. That's 10 years of life. Now, great, but then you spend 1 hour to do one case. That cannot happen. You cannot spoil the time of a very expensive human being that has been trained for ages and have a ratio of 1 hour per case. I'm doing now 10 minutes a case, safely. And I'm helping experts to scale, because that's fundamental. Now, I'm going to fast forward for the next 3-4 years. Today, there is a very dire disease called cardiac amyloidosis. You're familiar with with Alzheimer. Alzheimer is a result of accumulation of beta amyloid protein in your brain. The protein is accumulated, and actually, after it gets accumulated too much, your brain function doesn't work. That's called Alzheimer. The same happens in your heart, and disease is called cardiac amyloidosis. The accumulation of beta amyloid can suspend your heart function, can cause cardiac arrest at the right time. It takes 3 years to kill you. 10 years ago, this was not possible to address. We simply did not know what to do to the patients. A few years ago, Pfizer invented tafamidis, and tafamidis saves people's lives if we discover the condition on time. And there's a big if here. That's where I got to this, to the edge. You see, cardiac amyloidosis is very difficult to detect, even for a very good expert. And when they see it in the images, it is probably too late. 2/3 of the patients are never diagnosed, and they die without knowing that they died from this condition. We need to improve the ratio of diagnosis. Computers can be potentially better than eyes doing this. We need to help the cardiologists with computing power at the edge to do biomarker automation. I'm working on this today to guarantee that in 2 to 3 years, this will be possible. I would like, if I do this at an early enough date, I'm literally helping people to be rescued, literally. Now, this cannot be done without speed. This needs to be done at speed, okay? Or else we delay the whole process. That's why, at the end, the edge is important. I also would like to highlight that, obviously, we would not be here discussing this if NVIDIA boxes would not double their capacity every month. The Moore's law is slow compared to what's going on. We now can see things that we couldn't even imagine just a few years back. Just that, with the edge security that we've just mentioned, and I'm not an expert in that, obviously, but I understand the importance of it, given that you're talking about private data and you really want to defend people, as you should. The coupling of the two elements, NVIDIA power with the safety of the edge, basically means a whole new world. I certainly see that hospitals, I'm going to do shall we say, I'm going to play here an oracle thing. In 10 years, the bill of AI of an hospital will be big because all specialties of medicine will be impacted by AI. Not a single one will not. I will just quote one last example, and you'll allow me to actually get out of cardiology. Today we do biopsies and we do digital pathology. And we do one lamel to diagnose if a person has cancer. And to do that, we count cells, we see the shapes of the cells. That's a very tedious, rigorous process. It's like searching a bag in the sea. It's difficult. It's very large, the sea. Now, you do that in one lamel. We would love to do that in 30 lamels to do the whole biopsy. In a few years, we will be able to do virtual lamels, not physical lamels. And every lamel will be handled automatically. As you may imagine, the diagnostic power of this is much better than one single lamel. This is called 3D digital pathology. Today it's not feasible, but it will be feasible. 2D will be passed. We'll move from 2D to 3D. This cannot be done, again, without AI at the edge. That's the summary of it.
I could talk to you about this forever. I'm fascinated by it. I know you're extremely passionate about it. We're out of time. So thank you so much.
It was a pleasure.
Yeah, it was great having you. You're a great partner. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for spending some time with us this morning. Hopefully this was enlightening and you appreciate it and you start thinking a little bit different about where we're going to place workload and what that connectivity is going to look like between our sites. So appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of Cisco Live, everyone. Thank you.